The automatic doors of Dallas Love Field Airport slid open with a soft whoosh, ushering in the familiar symphony of rolling suitcases, distant announcements, and the faint hum of excitement that always seemed to linger in the air. 12-year-old Aisha Johnson walked briskly beside her nanny, Sarah Thompson, her small hands clutching the straps of a shiny pink backpack that bounced lightly with each step. For most kids her age, flying was just another routine trip, maybe a chance to snag some extra screen time or munch on overpriced snacks, but for Aisha, this was different. This was her first time flying first class, a treat her father, Marcus Johnson, had surprised her with after her big win at the state science fair. She'd been buzzing about it for days, her dark eyes sparkling like the beads woven into her neatly braided hair. Aisha wasn't the kind of girl who flaunted her family's wealth. Sure, her dad was Marcus Johnson, the self-made billionaire behind Johnson Innovations, a tech empire that had revolutionized affordable AI tools for schools and small businesses. He'd started from nothing, a kid from a modest Houston neighborhood who coded his way to the top. But Aisha, she was grounded, humble, the type who preferred burying her nose in books about space exploration or tinkering with robotics kits in her room. Today, she wore a simple lavender hoodie with the word genius stitched across the front in bold, glittering letters, a gift from her dad after she aced that math competition last year. It wasn't bragging, it was a reminder of her hard work. Her sneakers squeaked softly on the polished floor as she skipped a little, tugging Sarah's hand. "Do you think the seats are as comfy as Dad said, like clouds with armrests?" Sarah chuckled, adjusting her tote bag on her shoulder. She was in her mid-30s, with warm brown eyes and a no-nonsense ponytail that spoke to her years of keeping up with energetic kids like Aisha. "Even better, sweetie. Your dad doesn't exaggerate about these things. Remember that time he told you about his first big business trip? He said flying first class felt like being in a floating living room." Sarah's voice carried a hint of fondness. She'd been with the Johnson family for 5 years, ever since Aisha's mother passed away from a sudden illness. Marcus trusted her implicitly to keep his daughter safe, especially on trips like this one to visit relatives in Phoenix. As they joined the boarding line, Aisha scanned the crowd around them. Families with strollers, businesspeople glued to their phones, a group of teenagers laughing over shared earbuds. It was a snapshot of everyday life, but to Aisha, it felt like the start of an adventure. She pulled out her boarding pass, memorizing the details for the umpteenth time. "Seat 3A, window side." "Window seat means I can watch the clouds from above," she whispered to herself, a small smile playing on her lips. Other passengers glanced their way, some with polite nods, others barely noticing, but Aisha didn't mind. She wasn't here to be seen, she was here to soar. The line moved quickly, and soon they were on the jet bridge, the air growing cooler and carrying that distinct airplane scent of fresh leather and recycled air. Aisha's heart raced a bit faster. This wasn't just any flight, it was a milestone. Flashbacks flickered in her mind like scenes from a movie. Just a few months ago, at the science fair, she'd presented her project, a solar-powered robot that could sort recyclables. The judges had been impressed, awarding her first place amid cheers from the crowd, but not everyone was happy. A couple of kids from her class had whispered behind her back, "Of course she won, her dad's loaded." Probably bought the judges. It stung at first, those jealous jabs, making her question if her success was truly hers, but Aisha had learned to rise above it. Her dad had sat her down that night, his deep voice steady. "Baby girl, envy is just noise. You earned that trophy with your brain and your heart. Don't let anyone steal your shine." Those words had stuck with her, building a quiet resilience that made her stand a little taller. Sarah noticed the faraway look in Aisha's eyes and squeezed her hand. "Penny for your thoughts." Aisha blinked, coming back to the present. "Just thinking about the fair and Dad. He promised to call when we land." Sarah smiled. "He always does. You know, your dad once told me a funny story about his first flight. He was so nervous he accidentally sat in the wrong seat and ended up chatting with a famous actor the whole way. Turned out to be a networking gold mine. Aisha giggled, the sound light and infectious. Really, a dad never told me that one. Oh, yes. He said it taught him that sometimes the best opportunities come from unexpected places. Sarah's story eased any lingering nerves, and by the time they stepped onto the plane, Aisha was beaming. The first-class cabin was everything she'd imagined and more. Soft, ambient lighting bathed the wide seats in a warm glow, and the air smelled faintly of polished leather and subtle citrus from the cleaning spray. It wasn't crowded yet, just a handful of passengers settling in, stowing carry-ons and adjusting pillows. Aisha led the way, her backpack swinging as she scanned the row numbers, row 3. There it is. Her voice bounced with excitement as she spotted 3A, but as she approached, her steps faltered. The seat wasn't empty. A heavy-set man in his mid-50s sat there, his arms crossed over a stretched black polo shirt, a half-open newspaper on his lap. He had pale skin that flushed easily, short, thinning hair, and a round face set in a smug expression. He didn't look up, shifting slightly as if claiming the space permanently. Aisha glanced at Sarah, then back at the man. Her voice came out soft but clear. "Excuse me, sir, that's my seat." 3A. She held up her boarding pass, pointing to the number with pride. The man heralded Kensington, as his boarding stub would later reveal, finally lifted his pale blue eyes, narrowing them slightly. His lips curled into a smirk. "I think you've got it wrong, kid. This is my spot." Sarah stepped forward immediately, her tone polite but firm. "Sir, she's correct. Here's her boarding pass, 3A, window seat." Harold waved a dismissive hand without even glancing at the paper. "Must be a mix-up. Why don't you take her to the back? That's where kids belong anyway." The words hung in the air like a challenge, and Aisha felt a flicker of confusion. In her young mind, rules were straightforward. You buy a ticket, you sit where it says. But something about his tone made her stomach twist in anger, not yet, but a quiet resolve. She straightened her shoulders, her beads clicking softly. This was supposed to be her adventure, her cloud-watching perch. And just like at the science fair, she wasn't about to let someone else's assumptions dim her light. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a standoff that would ground the entire flight and teach everyone on board a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. The tension in the first-class cabin thickened like a gathering storm as Aisha stood frozen in the aisle, her boarding pass still extended like a fragile olive branch. Harold Kensington didn't even bother to unfold his arms, his smug expression deepening into something almost predatory. He leaned back further into the plush seat, as if the leather itself had molded to his form, claiming ownership through sheer audacity. Aisha's heart skipped a beat, not out of fear, exactly, but from the sharp realization that this wasn't going to be resolved with a simple "oops, my mistake." Adults were supposed to fix things, right? But this man, with his flushed cheeks and thinning hair, looked like he thrived on making them worse. "Sir," Sarah interjected again, her voice steady but laced with an edge of authority honed from years of navigating tricky situations with high-profile families. She held out Aisha's boarding pass more insistently this time, the printed details glaring under the cabin's soft lights. "This clearly states 3A. If there's a mix-up, we can sort it with the flight crew, but you're in her assigned seat." Harold finally glanced at the pass, but only for a split second, as if it were an annoying fly buzzing around his newspaper. He snorted, a low, dismissive sound that echoed faintly in the quiet cabin. "Listen, lady, I've been flying first class longer than this kid's been alive. Seats get switched all the time, upgrades, whatever. She be fine in coach. Plenty of room back there for games and cartoons." His eyes flicked to Aisha, appraising her with a curl of his lip that made her feel small, like a specimen under a microscope. "Besides, what's a girl like you doing up here anyway? Mommy and Daddy buy you the whole row." Aisha felt a flush creep up her neck, but it wasn't embarrassment, it was a spark of indignation. A girl like her? What did that even mean? Her mind raced back to a memory from school, one she'd tried to bury but that resurfaced now like an unwelcome ghost. It was last year, during recess, when a group of older kids had cornered her near the playground swings. You only get good grades 'cause your dad's rich and black teachers feel sorry for you. One boy had sneered, his words dripping with the kind of casual cruelty only kids could muster. Aisha hadn't cried then. Instead, she'd stared him down until he backed off, mumbling excuses. Her dad had taught her that silence could be a shield and words a sword. Use them wisely. Drawing on that now, she straightened her posture, her beads clicking softly like tiny affirmations. It's not about buying anything, sir. The ticket says 3A. That's my seat. Nearby passengers began to stir, their subtle glances turning into outright stares. A young woman in her early 20s, seated across the aisle into B, shifted uncomfortably. Her name was Mia Rodriguez, a college student heading home after a semester abroad, her laptop balanced on her tray table and earbuds dangling from one ear. Mia had been scrolling through social media, half listening to a podcast on social justice when the exchange caught her attention. She pulled out one earbud, her dark curls falling over her shoulder as she leaned slightly forward. There was something about Aisha's calm demeanor that resonated with her, reminded her of her own experiences as a Latina student in predominantly white classrooms where assumptions flew like arrows. Mia whispered to herself, "Come on, kid, don't back down," but kept it low for now, not wanting to escalate things yet. Still, her eyes met Aisha's for a brief moment, offering a silent nod of solidarity that made Aisha's resolve harden just a bit more. Harold, oblivious or uncaring about the growing audience, waved his hand again, this time more aggressively. "Rules are rules, huh? Well, life's not fair, little miss. I paid premium for this legroom, and I'm not budging for some pint-sized passenger who probably thinks this is a playground. Go on. Scamper back to economy where you won't disturb the adults." Sarah's eyes narrowed, her protective instincts kicking in like a mama bear. That's uncalled for. She's a child, and she has every right to be here. If you don't move, we'll have to involve the flight attendant. She scanned the cabin, spotting the attendant at the front, a tall woman with auburn hair tied in a neat benemeli. According to her name, Tegwo was busy greeting another passenger, but glancing their way with increasing concern. Aisha gripped her backpack straps tighter, her mind whirling. Why was he being so mean? It wasn't just about the seat anymore. It was the way he looked at her, as if she didn't belong in this polished world of priority boarding and complimentary drinks. Another flashback hit her time at school when she'd been chosen for the Advanced Robotics Club, only for a teacher to pull her aside and ask if her dad had influenced the decision. "People will doubt you because of who you are," her father had said later, over ice cream at their kitchen table. "Not just your age, but your skin, your story. But you prove them wrong by standing tall, not by shouting." Aisha took a deep breath, channeling that advice. "Sir, please. I memorized my seat number. It's 3A. Maybe you can check yours." Harold laughed outright now, a barking sound that drew more heads turning. "Memorized it. Cute, but memorizing doesn't make it yours. Tell you what, he'll give you a life lesson. Sometimes you gotta fight for what you want. And right now, I want this seat." He unfolded his newspaper with a dramatic snap, as if ending the conversation, but his cheeks were reddening, a sign that her persistence was getting under his skin. Mia's whisper grew a tad louder, directed at the empty seat beside her as if practicing. "That's messed up. The kid's got the ticket. Why is he acting like that?" She fiddled with her phone, tempted to start recording, but held back, waiting to see if things escalated. In her mind, this was straight out of the activism videos she'd watched, everyday injustice unfolding in real time. If it got worse, she'd step in, showed it to her own younger self, who had faced similar dismissals. Sarah, meanwhile, had had enough. She waved down Emily, who approached with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Is there a problem here?" Emily asked, her voice even but probing. "Yes," Sarah replied firmly. This gentleman is in my charge's seat, and he's refusing to move. We've shown him the boarding pass. Emily turned to Harold. Sir, may I see your boarding pass to verify? Harold sighed dramatically, rummaging in his pocket but not handing it over yet. It's fine, no need to make a scene. Just find the kid another spot. Aisha felt the eyes of the cabin on her now, a mix of curiosity, sympathy, and impatience from those eager to settle in, but she didn't waver. In that moment, with Mia's subtle encouragement bolstering her, she knew this was her stand. Not just for the seat, but for proving she belonged, no matter what anyone assumed. As Emily persisted, the whispers around them grew, turning the quiet cabin into a brewing cauldron of tension. Little did Aisha know, this was spiraling into something that would test not just her patience but the resolve of everyone watching. The cabin's atmosphere had shifted from the calm prelude of boarding to a palpable unease, like the quiet before a thunderstorm breaks. Emily, the flight attendant with her auburn bun and practiced poise, approached row 3 with measured steps, her heels clicking softly on the carpeted floor. She had seen her share of seating disputes of booked flights, mistaken assignments, even the occasional overindulged passenger, but something about this one felt off. The way the heavy-set man, Harold, lounged in the seat with defiant nonchalance contrasted sharply with the young girl's steady gaze. Emily forced a neutral smile, the kind that said, let's resolve this amicably, while preparing for the worst. All right, folks, Emily said, her voice carrying the even keel of someone trained to de-escalate. What's the issue here? I understand there's a seating mix-up. Sarah, standing protectively beside Aisha, didn't waste a beat. No mix-up at all. My charge has seat 3A as per her boarding pass. This gentleman is refusing to move. She extended the slip toward Emily, who took it and scanned the details quickly. Emily nodded, turning to Harold. Sir, may I see your boarding pass as well? Just to verify and get everyone settled comfortably, Harold grumbled under his breath, finally fishing out his stub from his pocket with exaggerated reluctance. He slapped it into Emily's hand like it was a burden. Here, but I'm telling you, this is my seat. I upgraded at the gate, paid extra for the window. Emily examined the pass, her brows knitting together as the truth crystallized. Sir, your assigned seat is 8C, in the main cabin. This is indeed 3A, reserved for this young lady. She handed both passes back, her tone firm but polite. We'll need you to relocate to your proper seat so we can proceed with boarding. The words hung in the air, simple and irrefutable, yet Harold's reaction was anything but compliant. He snatched his pass back, his face reddening like a kettle on the boil. That's impossible. Must be a glitch in the system. I'm not moving for a kid who probably got this as a handout. First class is for serious travelers, not playtime. He crossed his arms tighter, anchoring himself deeper into the seat, his newspaper crinkling under his elbow. Aisha watched the exchange, her small fingers still gripping her backpack straps. The man's words stung, echoing those schoolyard taunts she'd faced before, but they also ignited something to pair a lesson her father had instilled during one of their late-night talks. It was after a community event where Marcus had spoken about social equity, drawing from his own rise from poverty. Aisha, he'd said, his voice warm yet resolute as they sat on the porch under the stars, the world isn't always fair. People will judge you by your age, your skin, even your last name. But fairness isn't given, it's demanded with dignity. Stand your ground, not with fists but with facts and heart. Those words resurfaced now, steadying her. She looked up at Emily, her voice quiet but clear. He knows it's wrong. The ticket proves it. Why won't he just do what's right? Emily hesitated for a split second, glancing between Harold's defiant scowl and Aisha's unflinching eyes. The girl's composure was remarkable. Most kids her age would have dissolved into tears or tantrums by now. Young lady, you're absolutely correct, Emily said softly, then turned back to Harold. Sir, airline policy is clear. Passengers must occupy their assigned seats. If you refuse, we'll have to involve the captain or ground staff, which could delay the flight." Harold leaned forward, his voice dropping to a hiss that carried just far enough to unsettle nearby passengers. "Delay the flight? Over her? Come on, be reasonable. I've got a meeting in Phoenix, important business. She's just a kid, she forget this by snack time." He jabbed a thumb toward Aisha without looking at her, as if she were an inconvenient prop. The murmurs started then, rippling through the cabin like a wave. A couple to Rose back exchanged whispers. "Did you hear that?" "He's in the wrong seat." An older man in a business suit adjusted his glasses, pretending to read his tablet but clearly eavesdropping. Mia, the college student across the aisle, couldn't stay silent anymore. She had been subtly angling her phone, recording the scene from a discreet angle, not for drama, but because moments like this needed documentation. As an aspiring journalist majoring in media ethics, Mia knew the power of captured truth. She leaned slightly into the aisle, her voice low but directed at Aisha. "Hey, kiddo, you're doing great. Don't let him bully you. We've got your back." Her words were a whisper of encouragement, a lifeline in the growing tension. Aisha caught her eye again, a small nod passing between them, forging an unspoken alliance. Mia's support felt like a boost, reminding Aisha she wasn't alone. Sarah's patience was fraying. "This isn't about business or age, it's about following the rules. You've seen the proof. Move, or we'll make sure this escalates appropriately." Harold's smirk returned, though it wavered under the weight of the stares. "Escalate. Fine, bring on the crew. But mark my words, this is discrimination against paying customers like me." He unfolded his newspaper again, snapping it open as a barrier, but his knee bounced nervously. Betraying the cracks in his facade, Emily radioed quietly for backup, her professional mask holding firm. "We'll resolve this shortly," she assured Sarah and Aisha, then addressed Harold one more time. "Sir, last chance to comply voluntarily." As the standoff dragged on, more passengers tuned in. The businessman in row 4 muttered to his seatmate, "Unbelievable. Just show the ticket and move on." A young mother with a toddler glanced worriedly, hugging her child closer. The cabin, once a haven of pre-flight relaxation, now buzzed with undercurrents of judgment and impatience. Aisha, drawing from her father's wisdom, spoke up again, her tone measured and poignant. "Dad always says that fairness is like gravity, it pulls everyone down the same way if you let it. But you have to stand up to make it work." Her words, simple yet profound, hung in the air, silencing Harold for a moment. Even Emily paused, impressed by the depth from such a young voice. Mia, emboldened, whispered louder this time, her phone still capturing, "That's right. Keep going, you're inspiring everyone here." The connection between them grew. Mia saw in Aisha a mirror of her own past struggles. Like the time she'd been overlooked for a scholarship because of diversity quotas, only to fight back with evidence and win. This girl was doing the same, and Mia vowed silently to amplify her story if needed. Just then, another flight attendant approached Alex, a younger man with a calm demeanor and a firm jawline. He had been assisting in the galley but caught Emily's signal. "What's the situation?" he asked, his eyes assessing quickly. Emily briefed him succinctly, "Passenger in wrong seat, refusing to move." "Tickets confirmed," Alex nodded, stepping closer to Harold. "Sir, we can't proceed until this is sorted. Let's avoid any further delays for everyone's sake." Harold's bluster returned. "Delays. This is on you for pandering to a child." Uncomfortable right here, the cabin's whispers grew louder, a chorus of disapproval building. Aisha stood tall, her resolve unbreakable, as the confrontation teetered on the edge of escalation. What started as a simple seat swap was unraveling into a test of principles, with a 12-year-old at its center, teaching lessons in courage that no one had anticipated. The standoff in Route 3 had evolved from a minor inconvenience into a full-blown spectacle, the kind that made the air in the cabin feel thicker, heavier. As if every breath carried the weight of unspoken judgments. Harold Kensington, his face now a deepening shade of crimson, glared at Emily and the newly arrived Alex, the flight attendants who stood like reluctant referees in a mismatched bout. His newspaper lay forgotten on his lap, crumpled from his tightening grip as he leaned forward, voice rising just enough to ensure the nearby rows caught every barbed word. "You think you can boss me around? I've flown more miles than your combined careers. This seat is meaned of story. And if you side with that spoiled princess over there, you're just enabling entitlement." The insult landed like a slap, spoiled princess echoing in the confined space. Aisha felt it pierce her, not because it was new she'd heard variations at school, whispered behind hands during group projects, but because it was so blatantly unfair. She wasn't spoiled. She worked hard, volunteered at her dad's tech camps for underprivileged kids, and earned her spot in that science fair through late nights building prototypes. But Harold didn't know that or care. His words were a weapon, aimed at diminishing her to justify his theft. Yet, instead of crumbling, Aisha drew on the quiet strength her father had nurtured. Marcus Johnson often shared stories from his early days scraping by in a cramped apartment while coding his first app. "People will try to knock you down to build themselves up," he'd say, his eyes serious over dinner. "But you rise by lifting truth, not by stooping to their level." Aisha straightened her lavender hoodie, her beads clicking like a subtle rhythm of resolve. "I'm not a princess, sir. I'm just a girl with a ticket that says 3A. An entitlement, that's when someone takes what's not theirs and calls it fair." Her response, delivered with the calm precision of someone twice her age, hung in the air like a challenge. Harold's smirk faltered for a split second, his eyes widening in surprise. He hadn't expected pushback from a 12-year-old, let alone one so articulate. The cabin, already buzzing with whispers, erupted into a low ripple of murmurs. "Did you hear that?" a woman in row 5 whispered to her companion. Kid's got spine. The businessman from earlier, who had been feigning interest in his tablet, glanced up with a nod of approval, though he kept silent for now. Mia Rodriguez, the college student in to be, couldn't hold back any longer. She'd been recording discreetly on her phone, her journalist instincts kicking. Ensues was gold for her ethics class project on microaggressions in public spaces, but more than that, it hit personal. Mia remembered her freshman year when a professor had dismissed her essay on cultural representation because you're too young to understand real struggle. She'd fought back then and now. Seeing Aisha do the same ignited a fire. Mia stood up partially, leaning over her armrest into the aisle. "Hey, mister, she's right. We've all seen the tickets. You're the one acting entitled here. Move already, you're holding up the whole plane." Her voice carried confidence, amplified by her curly hair swinging forward like a banner of defiance. Harold turned his glare toward Mia, his belly shifting under his polo as he pointed a finger. "And who are you, some nosy millennial with a phone? Mind your own business. This doesn't concern you." "Oh, it does," Mia shot back, her cheeks flushing with adrenaline. "When a grown man bullies a kid in front of everyone, it concerns all of us." "What kind of example is that?" She glanced around, seeking allies, and locked eyes with a middle-aged man in row 4, a neutral observer up to this point, dressed in khakis and a button-down. Looking like he just wanted a peaceful flight, right? "You see this, don't you?" The man, caught off guard, shifted uncomfortably. His name was Tom Hargrove, a sales rep heading to a conference, and he hated confrontations. "Well, I mean, yeah, the ticket says 3A. But maybe we can just swap seats quietly. No need to make a federal case out of it. I've got a connection to catch." Mia's eyes widened in disbelief. "Swap, so reward the guy for stealing? That's not how it works. If we let this slide, what's next? So mean takes your bag because they need it more." Tom rubbed his neck, glancing at Harold, then Aisha. "Look, I'm not defending him, but delays suck for everyone. Kid, maybe sit somewhere else for now." Aisha, who had been quietly observing, felt a pang of frustration. Why did adults always opt for the easy way out? She reached into her backpack, pulling out her phony a sleek device her dad had customized with educational apps. "Maybe I should call my dad," she said softly, more to Sarah than anyone else. Her fingers trembled slightly as she tapped the video call icon for Marcus. The screen lit up, ringing. But no answer. He was probably in a meeting building the next big thing at Johnson Innovations. The failed connection added a layer of isolation, but it also fueled her. If Dad couldn't swoop in, she'd handle this herself. "No," she said, louder now, pocketing the phone. "Swapping means he wins by breaking rules. And if I let that happen, it's like saying it's okay to take from anyone smaller than you." Sarah placed a reassuring hand on Aisha's shoulder, her voice firm. "She's right. This isn't negotiable." "Emily, Alex, please, we need to escalate this." Emily exchanged a quick look with Alex, who nodded subtly. "Sir," Alex said to Harold, his tone hardening, "you're causing a disturbance. If you don't comply, we'll have no choice but to involve the captain." Harold laughed, a forced, bitter sound that didn't mask his growing unease. Sweat beaded on his forehead and his knee bounced faster. Deep down, flashes of his own failures flickered. A failed startup years ago where investors had pulled out because he didn't fit the mold. Now, projecting that onto Aisha, he doubled down. "Captain, bring him on. Let him see how you're prioritizing a brat over a loyal flyer. This is what happens when you let kids run the show." The word brat ignited more reactions. The woman in row 5, who had whispered earlier, spoke up now. "That's uncalled for. She's been polite the whole time. You're the one throwing a tantrum." A few others murmured agreement, the tide shifting slowly but surely. Mia, still standing, pointed her phone more openly now. "I'm recording this. People need to see how airlines handler don't handle stuff like this." She turned to Tom, the neutral man. "Come on, dude. If this was your daughter, would you tell her to back down?" Tom sighed, his resolve cracking under the scrutiny. "Fine, you're right. The guy's in the wrong. Just move, man, save us all the headache." Harold's face twisted, his arrogance cracking as the cabin turned against him. He gripped the armrests, knuckles white. "You people are sheep. Fine, record away, but I'm not budging until someone with real authority shows up." Aisha, sensing the momentum, spoke again, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Authority. The ticket is authority. And everyone here sees it. You're not fighting for a seat, you're fighting to be mean." Her words sliced through the noise, quieting the murmurs for a moment. Even Harold paused, his bluster deflating slightly. Mia gave Aisha a thumbs up, whispering, "You're a rock star." The failed call to her dad lingered in Aisha's mind, but it empowered her to she didn't need rescue, she had her voice. Emily, seeing the escalation, keyed her radio. "Captain, we have a situation in first class. Passenger refusing to vacate assigned seat. Requesting your presence." As the call went out, the cabin held its breath, the tension coiling tighter. What had begun as a simple boarding mishap was now a powder keg, with Aisha's quiet courage at its core, forcing everyone to confront their own thresholds for justice. The captain's footsteps, when they came, would decide if this ended in resolution or further chase. But one thing was clear. Aisha wasn't backing down. The cabin lights seemed to dim under the weight of the escalating drama, casting long shadows across the faces of passengers who had unwittingly become an audience to a real-life morality play. Whispers had given way to outright mutterings, phones angled discreetly to capture the unfolding scene, and the air hummed with a mix of frustration and anticipation. Harold Kensington, his arrogance now a brittle shell cracking under the pressure, sat rigidly in seat 3A. His knuckles white on the armrests as if they were lifelines. Deep inside, flickers of his own insecurities gnawed at memories of his failed venture capital firm where slick young entrepreneurs like Marcus Johnson had outmaneuvered him, leaving him bankrupt and bitter. He clawed his way back to a mid-level sales job, but the resentment lingered, bubbling up now as he projected it onto Aisha. A kid like her, he thought bitterly, born with a silver spoon while I fought for every scrap. It fueled his defiance, turning a simple mistake into a personal vendetta. Emily and Alex stood firm in the aisle, their professional facades holding, but the strain showed in Emily's tight smile and Alex's clenched jaw. "Sir," Alex said again, his voice a notch firmer, "we've confirmed the assignments. Continuing this will only delay everyone. Please, for the sake of the flight." Harold cut him off with a scoff, his voice booming louder than necessary. "Delay. This is your fault for not handling upgrades properly. I'm not the villain here, I'm the paying customer getting shafted for some VIP treatment scam." His eyes darted to Aisha, narrowing with thinly veiled disdain. "Bet her daddy pulled strings. That's how it works these days, right? Money talks, rules walk." Aisha's chest tightened at the jab, but she didn't flinch. The mention of her dad stirred another memoria. Quiet evening in their home library, surrounded by shelves of books on innovation and history. Marcus had been reading aloud from a biography of civil rights leaders, pausing to look at her with those wise, encouraging eyes. "Aisha, life's full of folks who'll try to push you aside because you don't fit their picture of success, but remember what Dr. King said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. You bend it by staying true, not by bending yourself." She nodded then, absorbing the lesson like a sponge. "Now, in this pressurized tube of metal," she channeled it. "My dad didn't pull strings," she said softly, her voice cutting through the noise like a clear bell. "He taught me that hard work and honesty win. Like when he started his company from nothing, no handouts, just ideas and effort. That's why I'm here, because we follow rules, not break them." Her words landed with impact, a simple anecdote that humanized her and exposed Harold's hypocrisy. Mia, still half standing in her seat, felt a surge of admiration. As a student who'd bootstrapped her way through college on scholarships and part-time jobs, Mia related deeply. "Exactly," she interjected, her phone still recording. "If anyone's scamming, it's you, squatting in a seat that's not yours. Listen to Hirsch's got more sense than half the adults here." Mia's enthusiasm drew nods from a few others, including the young mother in row 6, who clutched her toddler closer but whispered, "The girl's spot on, my little one watches everything. What message are we sending?" Tom, the neutral salesman in row 4, shifted again, his earlier hesitation giving way under the growing consensus. He'd been on enough flights to know when a situation was tipping. "Kid's story checks out," he muttered to his seatmate. "Reminds me of my niece's smart like that. Guy should just move before this blows up." Harold, sensing the shift, leaned back with forced nonchalance, but his mind raced. The flashbacks hit harder now. Boardrooms were younger, diverse innovators like Johnson had dazzled investors, leaving him in the dust. They didn't earn it, he'd tell himself back then, ignoring his own shortcuts and failures. Now, facing a child who embodied that success, his envy boiled over. "Cute story, kid. But life's not a fairy tale. I earned my place to Thraugrit, not daddy's wallet." Before the argument could spiral further, heavy footsteps echoed from the front of the plane. Captain Michael Stevens appeared in the aisle, a towering figure in his late 40s with sultan pepper hair and a uniform that exuded quiet authority. His presence alone commanded silence. Passengers sat straighter, phones lowered slightly, as if a judge had entered the courtroom. Stevens had piloted countless flights, from turbulent storms to medical emergencies, but passenger disputes like this tested his patience more than any weather pattern. He nodded to Emily and Alex, who quickly briefed him in hushed tones. "Captain," Emily said, handing over the boarding passes. "Passenger in 3A refuses to relocate to his assigned 8C. We verified everything." Stevens took the stubs, scanning them with practiced efficiency. His brow furrowed as he looked from the papers to Harold, then to Aisha, who stood with unwavering poise, her backpack still slung over one shoulder. "Sir," he began, his voice deep and measured, like the rumble of engines before takeoff. "Is this accurate? You're in seat 3A, but your ticket shows 8C. Harold puffed out his chest, attempting to match the captain's authority but falling short. "Captain, There's been a mistake. I upgrade paid good money. I'm not giving this up for her. He jabbed a finger toward Aisha, his tone laced with desperation masked as indignation. Stephen's jaw tightened, but he remained composed. No mistake here. The system is clear, and so is policy. Assigned seats must be honored. If there's an upgrade issue, it should have been resolved at the gate. Now, you're delaying boarding for the entire aircraft. He turned to Aisha, his expression softening slightly. Young lady, this is your seat, correct? Aisha nodded, holding up her pass. Yes, sir. 3A. I just want to sit and watch the takeoff. The captain's eyes held a flicker of respect for her calm. You'll get to do that shortly. Turning back to Harold, his voice hardened. Mr. Kensington, I'll ask once, move to 8C voluntarily, or we'll have to remove you. This plane doesn't leave until everyone complies. Harold's face twisted into a sneer, his inner turmoil years of perceived slights fueling a reckless stand. Remove me? For what? Defending my rights? You'd really toss a loyal flyer over a kid's whim. This'll make headlines, Captain. Airline bullies passenger for pint-sized VIP. The threat hung heavy, and Stevens rubbed his forehead briefly, weighing the optics. Airlines dreaded viral videos, but letting this slide would undermine authority. This isn't about headlines, it's about safety and fairness. Refusal means escalation, he signaled to Emily, who keyed her radio for ground security. Aisha, inspired by the captain's firmness, shared another snippet from her dad's teachings, her voice projecting to Mia and Tom. Dad says justice isn't always easy, it's like flying through clouds. You can't see ahead, but you trust the instruments. The tickets are instrument here. Mia beamed, whispering, preach, girl. That's going in my notes. Tom nodded, finally vocal. Captain's right. Move on, buddy. Harold, cornered, slammed his newspaper shut. Fine, call your goons, but this isn't over. You'll regret siding with her. The cabin tensed as the radio crackled with confirmation, security en route. Passengers exchanged glances, some annoyed at the impending delay, others rooting silently for resolution. Mia leaned toward Aisha, whispering, You're handling this like a pro. What's your name? Aisha, she replied softly. Thanks for speaking up. Mia? Stick with me, we'll make sure this story gets told right. As the minutes ticked by, the sound of approaching footsteps from the jet bridge signaled the arrival of security, 2 uniformed officers. Expressions neutral but ready. The confrontation had reached its boiling point, with Aisha's quiet resilience at the heart, proving that sometimes the smallest voice could bend the arc toward justice. The jet bridge's door hissed open like a reluctant sigh, admitting 2 uniformed security officers into the already charged cabin. They moved with the practiced efficiency of professionals accustomed to diffusing airborne dramas, broad-shouldered, badges gleaming under the overhead lights, expressions neutral but eyes sharp. Scanning the scene, the lead officer, a burly man named Reyes with a mustache that spoke of years on the job, nodded to Captain Stevens, who pointed subtly toward row 3. That's him, the captain said, his voice low but carrying the finality of a verdict, refusing to comply with assigned seating. We've exhausted all options. Harold Kensington's bravado, which had sustained him through the escalating arguments, began to fracture at the sight of the officers. Sweat glistened on his forehead, and his round face flushed deeper, a mix of rage and dawning panic. Deep down, the memories that had fueled his stubbornness now twisted into regret, flashes of his failed business deals, where his ego had cost him partnerships. Much like it was about to cost him this flight. He'd imagined this as a stand for principle, but now it felt like a humiliating spotlight. You can't be serious, he barked, his voice pitching higher as Reyes and his partner, a stern woman named Patel, approached. This is assault. I'll sue the airline. The captain, all of you. I'm a paying customer. Reyes stopped at the row, his tone even and unyielding. Sir, you've been asked multiple times to move to your assigned seat. Refusal to comply with crew instructions is a federal offense. We need you to come with us now voluntarily, if possible." The cabin held its collective breath, passengers leaning into the aisle, phones raised like modern-day torches. Mia Rodriguez, her curls framing a face alight with vindication, kept her camera steady, capturing every moment for what she already knew would be a viral thread on social media. Tom, the salesman in RAV4, whispered to his seatmate, "About time. Guy's been digging his own grave." Even the young mother in row 6 hushed her toddler, the child's wide eyes mirroring the tension. Harold, cornered like a fox in a trap, gripped the armrests tighter. "Voluntarily, over my dead body. This seat's Manet upgraded fair and square." But his bluster rang hollow now, the earlier smirks replaced by a desperate snarl. As Reyes reached for his arm, Harold twisted away, flailing in a last-ditch effort to hold his ground. "Get your hands off me. Do you know who I am?" In the scuffle, Harold's pocket caught on the seat's edge, and his wallet tumbled out, flipping open on the cabin floor. Time seemed to slow as passengers craned to see. Inside, nestled among credit cards and receipts, was his boarding pass clearly marked Economy Plus, Seat 8C, with no upgrade sticker in sight. A ripple of gasps and chuckles spread through the rows. "Wait, that's not even first class," Mia whispered loudly, zooming in with her phone. He was bluffing the whole time, the irony hung thick, a punchline to the absurdity. Harold, who had ranted about earning his place, had been squatting on a seat he hadn't even paid for properly. Tom snorted, cheapskate trying to scam his way up front. Classic. Aisha watched the scene unfold from the aisle, her small frame steady amid the chaos. The fallen wallet didn't bring her joy, just a quiet confirmation of what she'd suspected all along. Her dad's words echoed again, "People who steal often do it because they're empty inside. Don't let their emptiness fill you with anger, fill it with understanding." She didn't hate Harold. She pitied him, this grown man reduced to thrashing like a child. Sarah squeezed her shoulder, whispering, "You did this, sweetie." With grace. Patel, unfazed by the wallet mishap, assisted Reyes in securing Harold's arms. "Sir, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Stand up now." Harold resisted one final time, kicking out and shouting, "This is harassment. You'll hear from my lawyer. The whole world will know how you treat real Americans." But his bulk worked against him. The officers, trained for such scenarios, lifted him with coordinated precision, guiding him into the aisle despite his protests. His newspaper fluttered to the floor, pages scattering like defeated flags. As they hauled him toward the exit, Harold's yells echoed down the jet bridge, "You sheep, letting a kid run the show. This airline's a joke." The door sealed shut behind them with a definitive click, severing the chaos from the cabin like a guillotine. For a heartbeat, silence reignited, then applause erupted, starting with Mia's enthusiastic claps and spreading like wildfire. "Yes," she cheered, pumping her fist. Tom joined in, his earlier neutrality forgotten. The young mother smiled, bouncing her toddler gently. Even the businessman in the back row tapped his hands together. Captain Stevens raised a hand for quiet, but a small smile tugged at his lips. "Thank you for your patience, everyone. We'll get underway shortly." He turned to Aisha, crouching slightly to her level. "Young lady, that seat's all yours now. You handled yourself with more maturity than most adults I know." Aisha nodded, her beads clicking softly as she stepped forward. "Thank you, Captain. I just wanted what was right." She slid into 3A at last, the leather cool and welcoming against her back. Her pink backpack settled beside her, and she gazed out the window where the tarmac stretched under the airport lights. Relief washed over her, mingled with a quiet pride. Sarah sat nearby, beaming. "I'm so proud of you, Aisha." That took guts. The applause faded into murmurs of approval. "Kid's a legend," Tom said loudly enough for her to hear. Mia, not one to let the moment pass, leaned across the aisle. "Hey, Aisha, that was incredible. Mind if I get your number? I recorded the whole thing. We could share it, show the world what real courage looks like." "Only if you're cool with it, of course." Aisha hesitated, glancing at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. "Sure." Aisha said, pulling out her phone. They exchanged numbers quickly, Mia's fingers flying over her screen. I'll send you the video first. Edit whatever you want. This could inspire so many kids, especially girls like us, facing jerks who think we don't belong. Mia's words sealed a budding friendship born from shared defiance. Aisha smiled, feeling a warmth that chased away the earlier chill. Thanks, Mia. It's nice knowing I'm not alone. Emily and Alex began tidying the row, picking up Harold's scattered newspaper and wallet, which they'd hand over to security. Ladies and gentlemen, Emily announced over the intercom, her voice steady, we apologize for the disruption. We'll be pushing back from the gate soon, but as the crew bustled, a subtle undercurrent of delay crept in. Captain Stevens conferred quietly with Emily near the galley, his expression turning grave. Ground Ops is holding us, he murmured. They need to log the incident fully. Security involvement means paperwork, could be an hour or more. Emily sighed. The passengers won't like that. Indeed, as the announcement came, folks, due to the earlier situation, were delayed for documentation and safety protocols. Groans rippled through the cabin. Tom muttered, great, now we're paying for his ego. The young mother rocked her fussy toddler. Mia glanced at Aisha sympathetically. Don't worry, this isn't on you. It's on him. Aisha nodded, but a twinge of guilt flickered. She hadn't asked for this spectacle, she just wanted her seat. Yet, as she settled in, phone buzzing with a text from Mia, video sent. You're a hero. She realized the standoff had forged something bigger. Alliances, lessons, and a story that would linger long after takeoff. The plane might be grounded, but Aisha's spirit had already soared. The cabin, still humming with the afterglow of applause and scattered cheers, began to settle into an uneasy limbo as Captain Stevens' announcement crackled over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, due to the security incident, ground operations requires us to remain at the gate while we complete mandatory documentation. We anticipate a delay of at least 1 hour, possibly more. We appreciate your patience and will keep you updated. The words landed like a deflating balloon, sucking the air out of the triumphant mood. What had been a unified front against Harold now fractured into individual frustrations, the shared victory overshadowed by the reality of stalled plans. Phones lit up across the rows as passengers fired off emails, rebooked connections, and vented on social media. The tarmac outside gleamed mockingly under the airport lights, a reminder of the freedom just beyond the fuselage. Aisha sank deeper into her newly claimed seat 3A, the plush leather now feeling less like a throne and more like a spotlight. Her fingers traced the edge of her boarding pass, still clutched in her lap like a talisman, as guilt began to creep in. She hadn't meant for any of this, the yailing, the dragging, the delay. All she'd wanted was to watch the clouds drift by during her first-class flight, maybe sketch a few ideas for her next robot project in her notebook. Now, sideways glances prickled her skin, the businessman in row 5 typing furiously on his laptop. Muttering about missed meetings, the young mother in row 6 soothing her cranky toddler with a bottle, her eyes darting wearily toward the front. Even Mia, her new ally, shot her a sympathetic look before diving back into editing the video on her phone. Sarah Thompson, ever the steady anchor, noticed the shift in Aisha's posture, the way her shoulders hunched slightly, her beads no longer clicking with excitement. She unbuckled and slid into the empty seat beside her, wrapping an arm around the girl's shoulders. Hey, sweetheart, don't let the grumbles get to you. This isn't your fault, it's his. You stood up for what's right, and that's worth a dozen delays. Aisha nodded, but her dark eyes betrayed the doubt. But they're mad at me now. I can hear it. All this because of one kid. What if they think I should have just moved? Dad says sometimes picking your battles matters, but this one feels like I picked the wrong one. Sarah's heart ached at the vulnerability in her voice. Aisha was 12 going on 20. Wise beyond her years, but still a child navigating the sting of unintended consequences. Drawing from her own well of experiences, Sarah leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You know, When I was about your age, maybe a little older, had a moment like this. It was at a family reunion down in Louisiana. My cousin, this big bully of a boy, snatched my favorite doll right off the picnic table and tossed it in the creek, laughing like it was a game. Everyone just watched it, adults included, base. They didn't want to ruin the fun. I could have let it go, cried quietly, but I waded in after it, mud up to my knees, and fished it out. Got chewed out for making a scene, sure. But later, my aunt pulled me aside and said, "Girl, you showed 'em that some things ain't for taking. It taught me that standing still in the face of wrong, that's what lets it win. You did the opposite today, Aisha, and look, the doll's still mine." All these years later, Aisha's lips curved into a small smile, the story's warmth easing the knot in her chest. Sarah had always been more than a nanny, she was a confidant. A storyteller who wove lessons from her own battles with prejudice, growing up black in a small southern town where opportunities were doled out unevenly. Thanks, Sarah, that helps, but what if they never stopped being mad? Before Sarah could respond, the murmurs coalesced into something sharper. The businessman in Row 5, a sharp-featured man in a crisp suit named Richard Ellis, en route to a high-stakes merger in Phoenixland, his laptop shut with a thud that echoed. "Unbelievable," he declared, loud enough for the front rows to hear, his voice laced with exasperation. "All this drama over one seat, and now we're grounded like criminals. That little girl should have just taken economy, saved us all the headache. I've got investors waiting, and this is what? A tantrum fest." The words sliced through the cabin like a cold draft, heads turning toward row 3. Mia's head snapped up from her phone, her editing paused mid-clip. "Excuse me, a tantrum." She was the only one acting like an adult in there. "You saw the tickets, the guy was a thief, plain and simple." "Blame him, not her." Richard waved a hand dismissively, his tie loosening as his frustration mounted. "I saw a kid who could have de-escalated. Priorities, people. Not everyone can afford to play hero when real lives are on hold." Aisha's breath caught, the direct blame hitting harder than Harold's barbs. She twisted the strap of her backpack, her mind flashing to schoolyard echoes. Aisha's just showing off cause of her dad, but this time it wasn't jealousy, it was inconvenience. And somehow that felt worse. She unbuckled, turning in her seat to face him, her voice soft but piercing, carrying the clarity of someone who'd rehearsed truths in the mirror. "Sir, if I'd moved, it wouldn't have been de-escalating, it would have been giving up. And what if next time someone takes your seat or your bag? You say just let it go because it's easier, but easy isn't always right. If we all did that, bullies like him would never stop. They'd take more, from more people. Is that the priority you want?" The cabin fell into a stunned hush, Richard's mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Aisha's words, delivered without a raised voice or tear-streaked face, dismantled his complaint with surgical precision. Mia let out a low whistle, resuming her recording with a grin. "Boom. Kid just schooled you." Richard flushed, glancing around at the nodding headstem in Row 4, who chimed in with a gruff, "She's got a point, buddy." I was annoyed too, but that man's the one who jammed the gears. Even the young mother, her toddler now dozing, added softly, "My girl's watching." I'd want her to fight for her spot, not fold. As the support trickled in, an older passenger from the back of first class stood slowly, her silver-streaked hair catching the light. She was Evelyn Carter, a retired teacher in her 70s, bound for a granddaughter's wedding, her carry-on stuffed with handmade quilts. She'd been quiet through the ordeal, observing with the wisdom of someone who'd graded countless essays on ethics. Now, she made her way forward, her steps deliberate, stopping at Row 3 with a gentle smile for Aisha. "May I join you for a moment, dear?" Sarah nodded, and Evelyn eased into the seat across from them. "I've seen a lot in my years, protests in the 60s, boardrooms in the 80s where women like me had to fight for a voice," Evelyn began, her voice warm and weathered like aged oak. "Once, during a school trip to Washington, D.C., our bus driver refused to let my group, mostly black students, the front entrance of a museum. Whites only, he claimed, even though the sign said otherwise. The teachers hesitated, worried about causing trouble, but one girl, about your age, marched right up and said, "Our tickets say we belong some as yours." Security came, the driver backed down, and we got in. That delay, it bonded us, turned strangers into family. We still talk about it at reunions. Your stand today, it's that same spark. Don't carry their frustration, let it fuel you. Aisha's eyes widened, absorbing the story like a sponge. Really? You were there? Evelyn chuckled, patting her hand. Part of it, yes. History repeats, but heroes like you make it bend differently. What's your name, young warrior? Aisha Johnson. Evelyn's eyes lit with recognition. Johnson, as in Marcus Johnson of Johnson Innovations. My school uses his software. It's a game changer for kids in underfunded districts. Aisha blushed, waving it off. That's Dad's work. I just try to live up to it. The exchange rippled outward, more passengers leaning in, the delay transforming from a burden into a bridge. Mia, overhearing, texted Aisha, "Told Yao you're inspiring legends." Tom shared a laugh with his seatmate about corporate types getting owned by tweens. Even Richard, after a beat of silence, cleared his throat. "All right, kid, point taken. Sorry if I came off harsh, just long day." Sarah watched it all, her chest swelling with pride. See, Aisha, truth has a way of turning the tide. Even if it takes a detour. As minutes stretched toward the hour mark, Emily passed out complimentary waters and snacks, her announcements laced with apologies. "We're working on clearance. Thank you for your understanding." The cabin's energy shifted from splintered irritation to a tentative camaraderie, stories exchanged like currency. Evelyn shared quilt patterns with the young mother. Mia brainstormed caption ideas for the video with Tom. Aisha, buoyed by the connections, pulled out her sketchbook, doodling a robot justice enforcer with Sarah's input. But beneath the surface calm, the delay not connections missed, fatigue setting in. Captain Stevens radioed updates, another 30, at least. Groans resurfaced, but softer now, tempered by Aisha's earlier wisdom. She whispered to Sarah, "Maybe this is the battle I needed. Not just for the seat, but for everything." Sarah hugged her close. "Exactly, baby girl. And when we lift off, it'll feel twice as high." The plane remained earthbound, but in that suspended time, seeds of change took root, reminders that delays, like injustices, could forge unexpected strength. As the first hints of dawn crept across the tarmac, the cabin waited, transformed by a 12-year-old's unyielding stand. The delay stretched on like an unwelcome guest, the cabin's initial camaraderie fraying at the edges as the 1-hour mark crept toward 2. Overhead bins clicked open and shut as passengers rummaged for distractions, books, tablets, half-eaten snacks, while the hum of engines remained frustratingly silent. Outside, ground crew milled about the tarmac, their reflective vests glowing under the floodlights, oblivious to the simmering impatience within. Aisha Johnson, nestled in her hard-won seat at 3A, flipped through her sketchbook, her pencil sketching absent-minded outlines of a futuristic cityscape inspired by her dad's latest AI project. But her mind wandered, replaying the echoes of frustration she'd overheard. Evelyn's story had buoyed her spirits temporarily, but the weight of those sideways glances lingered, a reminder that even victories came with costs. Sarah, ever vigilant, monitored the shifting mood from her seat, her tote bag spilling over with travel essentials, granola bars, a puzzle book for Aisha, and her phone buzzing with updates from Marcus. He'd texted earlier, heard about the delay from the airline app. "You okay, kiddo? Proud of you for standing tall," but Sarah hadn't shared the full drama yet, not wanting to worry him mid-meeting. Instead, she focused on Aisha, whispering encouragements and sharing light anecdotes to pass the time. Mia, across the aisle, was deep in her phone, her fingers flying as she polished the video footage. Almost done, she muttered to herself, adding captions like "when a 12-year-old teaches adults about justice" and hashtags such as "Stand Your Ground" and "Erlina Drama." It was Evelyn Carter, the retired teacher with her quilted bag and gentle wisdom, who unwittingly ignited the next shift. She lingered near row 3 after her earlier chat, sipping a complimentary water and chatting softly with the young mother about family heirlooms. As she glanced at Aisha's sketchbook, the intricate drawings of robots and circuitry eyes widened in recognition. Those designs, they remind me of something. Johnson Innovations, right? The AI tools my old school district adopted last year. Transformed our STEM program overnight. Kids from low-income areas coding like pros. Your last name's Johnson. Wait, are you related to Marcus Johnson, the founder? Aisha froze mid-sketch, her pencil hovering over the page. She hadn't wanted the spotlight to shift to her family. This was supposed to be about the principle, not privilege. But Evelyn's question hung in the air, drawing curious ears from nearby seats. Sarah tensed, ready to deflect, but Aisha met Evelyn's gaze steadily, her voice soft. Yes, ma'am. He's my dad. The revelation rippled outward like a stone skipped across a pond. Evelyn's face lit up with delight. Well, I'll be. Marcus Johnson, self-made billionaire who started from a garage in Houston, right? I read his book, Code for Change, all about using tech for social good. Donated millions to education initiatives, and you're his daughter. No wonder you've got that fire in you, child. It's in the blood. Whispers spread quickly now, passengers piecing together the puzzle. Tom and Ralph leaned forward, his earlier annoyance forgotten. Johnson, as in the guy on Forbes last month. Build that AI platform that's revolutionizing healthcare in underserved communities. Wow, kid, your dad's a legend, the young mother nodded enthusiastically, her toddler now playing with a toy plane. We use his app at my job, free coding lessons for parents. Changed everything for us. Richard Ellis, the businessman who'd grumbled earlier, paused his frantic emailing, his sharp features softening as he eavesdropped. He crossed paths with Johnson Innovations in a deal once, a partnership that had boosted his firm's efficiency. Hold on, he said, louder than intended, twisting in his seat to face Aisha. Marcus Johnson's kid, that explains a lot. Your old man's a titan ethical tech, philanthropy. I met him at a conference once. Guy's got integrity 4 days, sorry about earlier, miss. Didn't realize I was in the presence of royalty. His tone carried a mix of awe and apology, the delay suddenly seeming less burdensome in light of the connection. Aisha shifted uncomfortably, her cheeks warming under the sudden admiration. She wasn't used to this at school. Her last name sometimes invited envy or assumptions, but here, it transformed her from the stubborn kid to a symbol of something greater. Flashbacks flooded her mind, vivid scenes from her life with Marcus that had shaped her unyielding sense of justice. One stood out. A sunny Saturday 2 years ago when she was 10, tagging along to one of his charity events in a rundown community center in Dallas. Marcus, tall and charismatic in a simple polo and jeans, had gathered a group of kids around laptops donated by his company. Tech isn't just gadgets, he told them, his deep voice resonating as he knelt to Aisha's level. It's a tool for equity. When I was your age, I didn't have Thishad to sneak into libraries to learn code. Now, we're making sure no one gets left behind. But remember, Aisha, with power comes responsibility. Use it to lift others, not just yourself. That day, she'd helped a shy boy debug his first program, watching his face light up as it ran successfully. Marcus had beamed, later pulling her aside during the drive home. You see, that's the real win, not the billions, but the change. People will see our name and assume easy streets, but we prove them wrong by giving back. Stand for what's right, even when it's hard. That's our legacy. Those moments, woven into her upbringing, had fortified her during the standoff. Now, as the cabin buzzed with her identity, she felt a mix of pride and pressure, a reminder that her actions reflected more than just herself. The mood in the cabin transformed palpably, the earlier bickering giving way to a wave of respect. Evelyn clapped her hands together. Well, this delay just got a whole lot more interesting. Tell us, dear, what's it like growing up with a dad like that? Bet you've got stories. Aisha smiled shyly, encouraged by Sarah's nod. He's just dad to me makes pancakes on Sundays, helps with homework. But yeah, he teaches me a lot about responsibility. Like last summer, we volunteered at a tech camp for foster kids. I built robots with them. It was awesome seeing them get excited about science. Mia, overhearing, grinned wide. That's incredible. I'm posting the video now with your permission, of course. This story needs to be out there. Aisha agreed, and Mia hit upload, sharing the edited clip on her social media with the caption, "A 12-year-old stands up to a seat stealer on a flight and she's the daughter of tech mogul Marcus Johnson. Courage just a seen there." Within minutes, as the post went live, Mia's phone pinged with notifications. Whoa, first likes already, and a message, inspiring. Sharing with my class, from a teacher in New York. Aisha, you're going viral. The revelation softened the remaining edges of irritation. Richard approached during a brief stretch break, offering Aisha a business card. "If you ever need internship advice for you or your dad's programs, give me a call. Least I can do after my earlier grumpiness." Tom shared a thumbs up, and even the captain, passing by during checks, paused to say, "Your father's work has helped our navigation systems. Small world, and you've got his spirit." As the cabin settled into a calmer rhythm, conversations flowing about philanthropy, tech, and personal triumph, Stile felt less like a punishment and more like an interlude. Emily distributed more snacks, her announcements optimistic, "Clearance expected soon, thank you for bearing with us." Passengers who had grumbled now shared smiles with Aisha, the air lighter, bonded by the unexpected celebrity in their midst. Aisha, reflecting on the shift, whispered to Sarah, "It's weird before, they were mad at me. Now, because of Dad's name." Sarah squeezed her hand. "It's not just the name, it's what it stands for. And you showed them that today, all on your own." Mia leaned over, her screen glowing with incoming support. "Check this first direct message for you. From one girl to another, you rock. Inspired me to speak up at work. See? Your story's already making waves." The plane remained grounded, but the atmosphere had lifted, a testament to how truth, once revealed, could turn tension into triumph. As the first signs of clearance crackled over the radio, Aisha gazed out the window, her sketchbook forgotten. The world outside waited, but inside, she'd already bridged Divity's own revelation at a time. As the first tentative rumbles of the engine stirred beneath the cabin floor, a collective sigh of relief swept through the passengers like a long-withheld breath finally released. Captain Stevens' voice crackled over the intercom once more, his tone laced with genuine apology and resolve. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've received clearance from ground ops. We'll be pushing back from the gate shortly and aiming for wheels up in about 15 minutes. Thank you again for your understanding. This hasn't been the smoothest start, but we're on our way." Applause broke out sporadically, not as thunderous as after Harold's removal, but heartfelt. A punctuation to the ordeal that had stretched the delay into nearly 2 hours. Aisha Johnson leaned back in her seat 3A, the window cool against her cheek as she watched the ground crew detach the jet bridge with efficient choreography. The revelation of her identity had shifted the cabin's energy from fractured irritation to a buzz of admiration, but now, with takeoff imminent, conversations turned inward. Passengers buckling up and stowing devices. Yet for Aisha, the quiet allowed reflection to seep in, a gentle tide washing over the events. She turned to Sarah, her voice barely above a whisper amid the pre-departure hum. "Sarah, do you think I did the right thing? I mean, really. Everyone was so mad about the wait, and even now, some are probably still grumbling inside." Sarah paused in adjusting her seatbelt, her warm eyes meeting Aisha's with the depth of someone who had seen her charge grow from a grieving 10-year-old to this resilient young girl. "Absolutely, sweetheart. The right thing isn't always the easy thing, it's the one that sticks with you, makes you proud when you look back. Remember what your dad says, regret comes from silence, not from speaking truth. You spoke yours today, and look around, you've touched lives." Aisha nodded slowly, her fingers tracing the genius embroidery on her hoodie. The word felt heavier now, a reminder of expectations, but also of her own capabilities. Mia Rodriguez, across the aisle, caught her eye and flashed a grin, holding up her phone. "Hey, I should check this out? The video's blowing up already. Over 100 views in 10 minutes, and comments like 'this kid's my hero.' You're trending in the best way." Mia leaned over, showing the screen where replies poured in, parents praising her poise. Teachers vowing to share the story in class, even a few influencers reposting with captions about everyday courage. The praise warmed Aisha, but it also prompted deeper thoughts. "It's cool, Mia. But I didn't do it for likes, I just wanted my seat. And now, talking about it hits like the whole thing was a lesson, you know. Like in school, but real life." Mia chuckled, tucking her curls behind her ear. "Totally. That's why I'm studying journalism to capture moments like this. You taught me something too. Sometimes the quiet voices roar the loudest. We should stay in touch, maybe collaborate on a blog post or something, from seat steal to viral deal." Aisha smiled, exchanging a quick nod. "I'd like that." "Friends of friends," Mia confirmed as the plane jolted slightly, beginning its pushback. The cabin lights dimmed for takeoff, casting a soft glow that invited introspection. As the aircraft taxied toward the runway, Aisha's mind wandered to the broader lessons etched into the day's chaos. Evelyn Carter, the retired teacher, had returned to her seat, but not before slipping Aisha a small note. "Keep bending that arc, dear. You've got the world in your hands." It echoed her father's teachings, those bedtime stories of perseverance that had shaped her worldview. One in particular resurfaced a tale from Marcus's early days when he'd pitched his first app to skeptical investors in a dingy conference room. "They laughed me out," he'd recount with a grin, said a black kid from the projects couldn't disrupt tech. "But I kept showing up, refining, proving. That no became my fuel. Lessons aren't in the wins, they're in the stands you take." She pulled out her phone, the screen lighting her face as she typed a quick message to Marcus. "Flight delayed big time, long story. Stood up for my seat like you taught. Miss you. Call when we land." Before hitting send, she added a photo of her view, the runway lights blurring into streaks as the plane accelerated. The response came almost instantly. "Can't wait to hear it. Proud no matter what. Love you, kiddo." The words grounded her, a tether amid the ascent. The plane lifted off with a gentle roar, the ground falling away as Dallas's skyline twinkled below. Aisha pressed her forehead to the window, the clouds she'd dreamed of finally within reach. "It's beautiful," she whispered to Sarah, "like flying through possibilities." Sarah nodded, her hand on Aisha's. "And you've opened some for others today. Think about it." Mia's inspired to amplify stories, Evelyn's reminded of her activist days. Even that grumpy businessman might think twice next time he sees injustice. "You didn't just claim a seat, you claimed space for fairness." Aisha pondered that. Her sketchbook open on her lap where she doodled a cartoon of the incident, a tiny figure standing firm against a blustery giant, with speech bubbles reading "That's my seat" and "Rules matter." It was silly, but therapeutic, a way to process the whirlwind. "Yeah. And for me, I learned that being scared doesn't mean you back down. I was nervous the whole time, but I kept going." Like Dad's story about his first big fail, a Rev app that crashed during demo. He fixed it, made it better. This feels like that. A crash that led to something stronger. The flight smoothed out at cruising altitude, Emily and Alex making rounds with beverages and warm towels. Passengers relaxed, some dozing, others chatting in hushed tones about the seat saga. Tom leaned back, sharing with his seatmate, "That kid's got more guts than most CEOs I know. Reminds me to teach my own daughter to speak up." The young mother, her toddler finally asleep, caught Aisha's eye and mouthed "Thank you," a silent nod to the example set. Mia, ever the connector, sent Aisha a draft of their potential blog post, "Aisha's Airborne Stand. How one girl grounded a bully and lifted us all." Reading it, Aisha felt a swell of emotion and ego. "But empowerment, this could help other kids," she said to Sarah, "like, if they're bullied at school or feel out of place." Maybe I can add my sketches. Absolutely, Sarah encouraged. Turn it into art. Your dad would love that, mixing creativity with impact. As the flight progressed, Aisha and Mia brainstormed via quick texts, weaving in Evelyn's historical anecdote and Sarah's dull story for depth. The collaboration felt organic, a silver lining to the delay. Richard, overhearing snippets, even offered a tip: if you're going viral, protect your narrative. I've seen deals go south from bad press, but this. Pure gold. By the time the descent announcement came, the cabin felt transformed, not just from delay to flight, but from strangers to a loose-knit community. Aisha, gazing at the approaching Phoenix lights, internalized the day's core lesson: courage wasn't about volume or victory. It was about persistence in the face of discomfort. I won't forget this, she murmured as wheels touched down with a soft thud. The plane taxied to the gate, passengers gathering belongings with renewed energy. Mia hugged Aisha goodbye. Text me when you're home. This is just the beginning, Evelyn waved. Tom nodded approvingly, and even Richard offered a gruff safe travels. Kid, stepping off with Sarah, Aisha felt taller. The airport bustle a blur around her. The event had been a crucible, forging her maturity in real time. As they headed to baggage claim, her phone rang. Marcus. Tell me everything, he said, his voice beaming with pride. And as she recounted the tale, Aisha realized the real takeoff wasn't the plane's, it was hers, into a world where her voice could soar unbound. The wheels of the plane touched down in Phoenix with a gentle thud, the runway lights streaking past like fleeting memories as the aircraft slowed to a taxi. Aisha Johnson gazed out the window, the desert landscape unfolding under a twilight sky, a far cry from the bustling Dallas airport where her adventure had begun. The flight, once airborne, had passed in a blur of snacks, movies, and quiet conversations with Sarah and Mia, but the weight of the day's events lingered like an aftertaste with victory, yet tinged with a residue of conflict. As passengers unbuckled and gathered their belongings, Aisha felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. Finally, she murmured to Sarah, slinging her pink backpack over her shoulder. But what now? Sarah smiled, guiding her toward the exit. Now, we get to your aunt's house, eat some real food, and you tell your dad the full story. The rest, it'll fade like turbulence after clear skies, but fade it did not. As they navigated the terminal, Aisha's phone buzzed incessantly in her pocket, a symphony of notifications that grew louder with each step. Mia had uploaded the video during the flight, and in the digital ether, it had ignited like dry tinder. By the time they reached baggage claim, the clip titled 12-Year-Old Stands Up to Seat Stealer on Flight and Wins had amassed thousands of views on social media platforms. Comments flooded in: this girl is a boss, stand your ground, airlines need more accountability to the kid, and inspiring. Sharing with my daughter. Mia texted Aisha from the carousel. Holy cow, it's viral. Reporters are dming me. You okay with this? Aisha stared at her screen, wide-eyed. Viral, like, for real. Sarah peered over, her brow furrowing protectively. We need to talk to your dad about this. Publicity can be a double-edged sword. They didn't have to wait long. Marcus Johnson, ever the vigilant father, called as they climbed into the waiting car service bound for her aunt's home in Scottsdale. Aisha, Sarah filled me in on the basics, but I just saw the video popping up everywhere. Are you all right? That man, what a piece of work. I'm so proud of you for holding your ground. Aisha recounted the details: the initial shock, Harold's smug defiance, the crew's intervention, the dramatic removal, and the delay that followed. Marcus listened intently, his voice warm through the speaker. Sounds like you channeled every lesson we've talked about. Fairness, resilience, that's my girl. But viral fame, we'll handle it together. I've got my team monitoring. If it gets overwhelming, we pull back. For now, use it for good, like we always do. The next morning, as Aisha woke to the scent of her aunt's homemade waffles, the story had snowballed into a full-blown phenomenon. National news outlets had picked it up. CNN ran a segment titled Young Girls Stand Ground's Flight. sparks debate on civility, while the New York Times featured an op-ed on the power of quiet courage in everyday conflicts. Social media exploded with Memesatia's calm face, photoshopped onto superheroes, captions reading "When you won't let anyone steal your seat," or "your thunder." Hashtags like A Shastans and Seat Justice trended, amassing millions of impressions. Influencers weighed in, from celebrities praising her poise to activists linking it to broader issues of entitlement and bias. Mia, true to her word, stayed in touch, their friendship blossoming over frantic texts and video calls. "This is insane," Mia exclaimed during a late morning FaceTime from her hotel. "A local station wants to interview us both. We could turn this into something bigger, like a campaign against bullying in public spaces." Aisha hesitated, glancing at Sarah and her aunt, who nodded encouragingly. Marcus, on a conference call from Texas, gave his blessing. "Go for it, but keep it authentic. Remember, it's your story." By afternoon, Aisha and Mia sat in a Phoenix studio for a live segment on a morning show affiliate. The host, a bubbly anchor named Lisa Ramirez, leaned forward with a microphone. "Aisha, you're only 12, but you handled that situation like a seasoned diplomat. What gave you the courage to speak up?" Aisha, dressed in a simple sundress with her braided hair neatly beaded, took a breath. "It wasn't about being brave, I was scared. But my dad taught me that if something's wrong, you fix it with words and facts, not by backing down. That man took my seat, but more than that, he acted like I didn't belong. Everyone deserves respect, no matter their age or who they are." The interview went viral too, clips shared across platforms, amplifying Aisha's message. Mia added her perspective. "As a college student, I've faced dismissals too. Aisha showed us all that standing up creates ripples. Look at the conversations it's starting." They announced their budding project, a joint initiative with Johnson Innovations to develop an anti-bullying app using AI to detect and report online harassment inspired by the flight's events. "We'll call it Stand App," Mia suggested on air, and Aisha grinned. "Perfect for kids who feel small but aren't." Back at her aunt's, as the media frenzy peaked, an unexpected twist arrived via email. Harold Kensington, the very man who'd sparked it all, reached out through a mutual contact, a lawyer friend of Marcus's. The message was terse but sincere. "Miss Johnson, I've seen the coverage. My behavior was inexcusable. Pride got the better of me, rooted in my own failures. I'd like to apologize in person, if possible. No excuse, just regret." Marcus vetted it, ensuring no ulterior motives, and arranged a mediated video call. Aisha, with Sarah and her dad by her side, faced Harold's pixelated image 2 days later. He looked diminished, his round face pale, the smugness gone. I was wrong," he admitted, voice cracking. "I took your seat out of entitlement, and worse, I belittled you." Seeing the video, hearing your words, had hit home. "I've got grandkids your age. I'd hate for them to face someone like me. Please accept my apology." Aisha studied him, her young heart weighing forgiveness against the hurt. Marcus had always emphasized grace. "Forgive not for them, but for you to move forward unburdened." She nodded slowly. "I accept, Mr. Kensington, but apologies mean change. Maybe think about why you acted that way and help others not to. Like, volunteer or something." "That's what my dad does." Harold's eyes widened, touched by her maturity. "I will. Thank you for the lesson." The call ended amicably, Harold later donating to Johnson Innovations Education Fund, a quiet redemption arc that Mia wove into their growing narrative. The aftermath extended beyond the personal. Schools invited Aisha for virtual talks. Her story featured in children's books on empowerment. Mia and Aisha's friendship deepened, their anti-bullying project launching a beta version within months, funded by Marcus but driven by their vision. Collaborations poured in. Evelyn connected them with historical activists for insights, Tom offered business advice pro bono, and even Richard became a beta tester, his earlier grumpiness replaced by genuine support. Months later, back in Texas, Aisha reflected on it all during a family dinner. Marcus raised a glass. To my daughter, the real innovator. Aisha blushed. It wasn't just me. It was everyone at the crew. Mia, even the delay. It showed that one stand can spark a chain reaction. The story of the grounded flight became legend, a reminder that justice often starts small. A girl, a seat, a voice refusing to yield. In online forums and dinner tables, it prompted discussions on civility, bias, and courage. Harold, transformed, shared his side anonymously in a podcast, crediting Aisha for his wake-up call. Mia's journalism career skyrocketed, her thesis on viral acts of everyday heroism earning accolades. For Aisha, the true legacy was inter alia deepened resolve, a network of allies, and a project combating the very entitlement she'd faced. As she tinkered with stand-up's code late one night, her dad's words echoed. Change isn't in the spotlight, it's in the ripples. The flight had ended, but its echoes rippled on. Grounding in justice one story at a time. The wheels of the private jet touched down smoothly on the tarmac at Dallas Love Field. The familiar Texas sun casting long shadows across the runway as Aisha Johnson stepped off into the balmy afternoon air. It had been a whirlwind week in phonics interviews, planning sessions with Mia, and quiet family dinners with her aunt that had felt like a brief respite from the storm. But now home called, and with it, the chance to decompress and share the unfiltered tale with the one person whose pride meant the most, her dad, Marcus. Sarah walked beside her, carrying their bags, her face etched with a kind of weary satisfaction that came from surviving chaos intact. "Ready to spill the beans to your old man," she teased, nudging Aisha's arm. Aisha grinned, her beads clicking as she adjusted her backpack, more than ready, but what if he thinks I overdid it, like I could have just waited for the crew? Sarah shook her head, her ponytail swinging. Overdid it, sweetheart, you did it just right? And Marcus, he'll see that too. Remember, he's the king of turning overdoing into opportunity. The drive home wound through the city's outskirts, past sprawling tech campuses and blooming jacarandas, until they pulled into the gated driveway of the Johnson family home, a modern sprawl of glass and stone nestled on a hill overlooking the skyline. It wasn't ostentatious. Marcus had designed it with intention, open spaces for collaboration, a home lab for Aisha's projects, and a backyard garden where he'd planted vegetables with her as a toddler, teaching her that growth came from roots in the soil. As the car crunched to a stop, the front door burst open, and there he was, Marcus Johnson, towering and broad-shouldered in a casual button-down, his smile wide enough to light the horizon. Aisha, he swept her into a bear hug, lifting her off the ground for a moment despite her protests of, "Dad, I'm 12, not 10. Sarah chuckled, slipping inside to give them space. Marcus set her down, holding her at arm's length, his dark eyes scanning her face. "You look taller. Or maybe it's just that spark." "Yeah, definitely the spark. Come on. Kitchen? Pancakes are waiting, and I want every detail." They settled at the island counter, the scent of fresh batter and coffee filling the air. Marcus flipped pancakes with practiced flaironi for each story beat while Aisha launched into the narrative. She started with the excitement at the airport, the thrill of her first-class boarding, then the gut punch of finding Harold in her seat. Marcus listened raptly, his spatula pausing midair as she described the man's smug dismissal, the crew's interventions, and her own steady responses. "I kept thinking of what you said about the arc bending toward justice," she admitted, syrup dripping from her fork. "It felt like I was trying to bend it right there in row 3. Marcus's eyes misted, pride swelling in his chest. He set the spatula down, pulling up a stool beside her. "Baby girl, you didn't just bend it, you straightened it for everyone on that plane. I'm not surprised. I've seen that fire in you since you were knee-high, fixing your first Lego robot and declaring it unbreakable, but hearing it, damn, Aisha, you faced down entitlement with grace. That's not just courage. That's character." Aisha blushed, but the validation settled deep, easing the last knots of doubt. It wasn't all me. Mia helped recorded it, and now we're friends working on this app. And Evelyn, the teacher, she shared this story from the 60s that made me feel connected, like I'm part of something bigger. Marcus nodded, his mind already whirring with possibilities. That's the ripple effect. You know, when I started Johnson Innovations, I was 22, coding in a basement with no heat, pitching to folks who saw me as that kid from the project's first big investor meeting. They laughed, said AI for education was a pipe dream. I could have quit, but I doubled down, donated the first profits to community centers. That choice, it built everything. Your stand, same thing. It's not about the seat, it's about showing the world that fairness isn't optional. As the afternoon unfolded, father and daughter migrated to the home lab, a sunlit room filled with prototypes. Whiteboards scrawled with algorithms, and Aisha's corner cluttered with circuit boards and half-built drones. Marcus pulled up schematics for the Stand app, the anti-bullying tool she and Mia had brainstormed. Let's tweak this, he suggested, handing her a tablet. Your voice detection module make it smarter at spotting subtle digs like what that guy said about you not belonging. Aisha dove in, her fingers flying over the screen, but midway through, a deeper resolve crystallized. Dad, this whole thing made me think. I want to do more than just talk about it, like at school kids get picked on for being different or smart or whatever. What if I organized something, a workshop on standing up with stories and activities? Invite Mia to co-lead. Marcus's face lit with that trademark Johnson grin, equal parts mischief and inspiration. Now you're talking. We'll fund it through the foundation, but you run point. Call it Aisha's Arc Benders or something punchy. Get Evelyn involved for the history angle. Hell, loop in that captain if you want airline cred. The idea took root that evening as Aisha sketched outlines in her notebook, sessions on recognizing bias. Role-playing scenarios like the flight and group projects, building courage kits, apps, journals, even custom bracelets etched with Stand Tall. She texted Mia immediately, workshop I dove in. Turning the flight into lessons for kids, Mia's reply was a flurry of emojis and yes. Let's make it national, but as night fell, the planning gave way to quieter revelations. Tucked into her bed, fairy lights strung across the ceiling casting a soft glow, Aisha's thoughts turned inward. The room, with its posters of Ada Lovelace and Mae Jemison, felt like a sanctuary, but tonight it stirred memories long held close. She reached under her pillow for the worn photo album her mother, Elena, had compiled before her, passing a vibrant woman with Aisha's eyes and an infectious laugh. A software engineer who'd met Marcus at a hackathon and built their early prototypes together. Elena had died when Aisha was 8, taken suddenly by a rare illness, leaving a void that time had softened but never filled. Flipping to a favorite page, Aisha traced a photo of the three of them at a science museum, Elena kneeling beside her, pointing at a star projector, whispering, "See that light, Mia Strela. It's small, but it guides ships across oceans. You're my starshine no matter the dark." Those words had been her anchor during the grief, and now, post-flight, they resurfaced with new power. Elena had embodied inner strength, facing workplace sexism with quiet defiance. Aisha recalled overhearing her tell Marcus about a promotion denied because we need a team player, not a trailblazer. Elena hadn't raged. She'd channeled it into mentoring young coders, including Aisha's first lessons in loops and logic. Strength isn't loud, Mia, she'd say. It's the steady code that runs without crashing, even in a storm. Tears pricked Aisha's eyes, not from sadness but from a profound connection. The flight's ordeal had echoed Elena's lessons, standing firm amid doubt, using intellect as armor. "Mom," she whispered to the photo, "I think I got it right this time. Like you." It fueled her commitment. Workshop wouldn't just be about the seat. It'd honor Elena's legacy, weaving stories of women who'd bent arcs before her. The next day, Aisha dove into action. She emailed her school principal, pitching the workshop with a polished proposal, empowering voices, lessons in courage from real-life stands. To her delight, approval came swiftly. With a slot in the upcoming assembly series, Mia flew in for the weekend, her suitcase stuffed with presentation slides and demo gadgets. Together, they rehearsed in the living room, Marcus and Sarah as mock audience. "Okay, scenario, bully takes your lunch money," Mia prompted. Aisha stepped forward, channeling her flight poise. "Not cool. That's mine, hand it over, or we talk to someone who can help," Mia applauded. "Nailed it." Now, at the tech twist show, how stand-up flags it. Evelyn joined via Zoom from her retirement home, sharing civil rights tales adapted for tweens. That bus in Montgomery. One woman's no sparked a movement. Your no on the plane, same seed, the generational bridge thrilled Aisha, turning abstract history into relatable fire. The workshop launched 2 weeks later in the school auditorium, buzzing with 100 fidgety middle schoolers. Aisha, microphone in hand, opened with the flight story, no frills, just raw honesty. "I was scared, but I remembered. Silence lets wrong win. So I spoke." Mia followed with the video, gasps rippling as Harold's removal played out. Then, hands-on, kids paired for role plays, building mini robots programmed to alert on unfair scenarios, courtesy of Marcus's lab. Feedback poured in notes from participants. "I told my brother to stop teasing my little sis today, felt like a hero." One girl, shy like Aisha once was, hugged her afterward. "Thanks for showing it's okay to be the small one who stands big." Mia captured it all for their blog. Now growing platform with guest posts from Evelyn and even a contrite Harold who'd volunteered at a local shelter. Marcus watched from the back row, his heart full. Later, over ice cream, he pulled Aisha aside. "Your mom's smiling down, you know that. Visits her in you. The quiet force that changes code and worlds." Aisha nodded, the weight lifting into wings. The flight had been a spark, now it blazed into purpose. As she lay awake that night, visions of expanding workshops, dance, a national tour, app integrations, a foundation in Elena's name. The arc bent not just for her, but for countless others, proving that one girl's stand could echo eternally, grounding injustice while lifting spirits skyward. The sun dipped low over the Dallas skyline, painting the Johnson family home in hues of amber and rose as Aisha Johnson sat cross-legged on her bed, her laptop balanced on a pillow fortress. It had been 6 months since that fateful flight, one that had started with a stolen seat and ended with a grounded plane, a viral video, and a cascade of changes that still felt like a dream. Outside, the jacaranda trees whispered in the evening breeze, their purple blooms a reminder of growth's quiet persistence. Aisha's room, once a simple haven of posters and prototypes, now brimmed with new artifacts, a framed screenshot of Mia's video with the caption "Stand Tall," a stack of thank you letters from workshop participants, and a prototype bracelet from the stand-up Batava, vibrating gently to alert users of positive ripple notifications like a digital high five for acts of courage. She scrolled through the latest updates on their blog, Arc Benders, her collaboration with Mia, now a thriving online hub with thousands of followers. Posts ranged from user-submitted stories, "I stood up to a playground bully today," thanks to Aisha's tips, to Evelyn's serialized histories of unsung heroes. The anti-bullying app had launched fully 3 months ago, downloaded by schools across Texas and beyond. Its AI sifting through texts and posts to flag microaggressions with gentle prompts, "Is this fair?" How might it feel on the receiving end? Marcus had beamed at the rollout party, toasting, "This isn't just Kodiak's conscience, but for Aisha." The true measure wasn't metrics, it was the emails from kids like her, once silent, now speaking. A soft knock pulled her from the screen. Marcus poked his head in, his button-down rumpled from a long day at the office, but his eyes twinkling with that familiar spark. "Deep in world domination mode. Dinner's ready, Sarah's making your favorite, Elena's gumbo." He stepped inside, settling on the edge of the bed, glancing at the open album beside her, the one with her mother's photo. Elena's laugh frozen in time, reflecting. Aisha closed the laptop, nodding. "Yeah. The flight feels like yesterday, but..." "Look at this," she pulled up a news alert. Johnson Innovations expands stand-up to national schools owned by teen visionary Aisha Johnson, then another. Former passenger Harold Kensington launches mentorship program for at-risk youth. Her voice softened, "It's all connected, Dad." That one moment grounded everything, but it lifted so much. Marcus chuckled, ruffling her braids, grounded and lifted poetic, "Kiddo. Remember when we talked about ripples, yours hit a shore I never saw coming." He paused, his expression turning thoughtful. "Speaking of, I ran into an old contact today wants to adapt your story into a kids' book series. Seeds of Courage or something, you game?" Aisha's eyes widened, the idea igniting like a new circuit. A book, like, with illustrations. And the app tie-ins, she grabbed her sketchbook, flipping to a page of doodles, diverse kids and everyday standoffs, from lunchroom lines to online chats, each ending with a stand that sparked change. "I've been drawing these quiet heroes like Mom was. She always said stories are the best code. They run in hearts, not just machines." Marcus's gaze lingered on the sketches. A flicker of Elena in every Lineth way. Aisha captured resilience with simple strokes, much like her mother had debugged code with patient intuition. She'd love this. Hell, she'd be co-authoring it by now, adding her twists on empathy algorithms. He squeezed her shoulder. "Your call, but let's make it happen." Fur. As they headed downstairs, the scent of gumbo wafting up like a warm embrace. Aisha's mind wandered to the event that had crystallized her growth, the national workshop tour she'd launched 2 months prior. The first stop had been in Phoenix, a full-circle nod to the flight's endpoint, where Mia and Evelyn had joined her on stage before a packed auditorium of middle schoolers. "Remember that plane?" Aisha had begun, projecting the video for gasps and giggles. One seat, one stand, and look where it led. The kids had eaten it up, role-playing scenarios with props from the stand-up, wristbands buzzing during bully moments, prompting group debriefs on fairness. One boy, shy with braces, had raised his hand. "What if standing up makes you lose friends?" Aisha's answer, drawn from Elena's well, "True friends lift you higher. The rest, they're just weighing you down." The tour had snowballed Atlanta, Chicago, even a virtual leg to London, each stop weaving in local voices, a Native American elder sharing land rights stories, a queer teen activist demoing app features for online safety. Evelyn's segments grounded it in history, her voice cracking with emotion. "You young ones, you're the next arc benders. We paved the path, you widen it." Mia handled the media, turning workshops into live streams that boosted downloads exponentially. And through it all, Aisha felt Elena's presence not as a ghost, but a guide, her mother's words echoing in every encouragement. "Shine steady, Mia Strela. The dark needs your light," but the most profound echo came from an unlikely source, Harold Kensington. Their paths crossed serendipitously at a Dallas charity gala 3 weeks ago, Marcus's foundation hosting an event for youth mentorship. Aisha, in a simple blue dress, had been mingling with donors when she spotted him across the room, thinner, grayer, but with a humility that softened his once round features. He approached hesitantly, a glass of punch in hand, his lawyer trailing awkwardly behind. "Miss Johnson, Aisha, I hope I'm not intruding." She'd frozen for a split second, the cabin's tension flashing back, the smug sneer, the flailing removal. But forgiveness, as Marcus taught, was a choice, not a feeling, Mr. Kensington. "No, it's okay. How've you been?" Harold shifted, his eyes downcast. "Better, thanks to you. That flight, it was my rock bottom. Seeing myself on video, hearing your words, it cracked the mirror I'd been hiding behind. My failures, the envy. I took it out on you, a kid who deserved better." He gestured to a booth nearby where young men in hoodies chatted with mentors. "That's my program, second seats, for guys like me who've lost their way. We talk entitlement, accountability, 20 participants so far, all turning corners. One even credited your app for spotting his toxic posts." Aisha listened, surprise melting into respect. "That's amazing. I forgave you before, but this, it's real change." He nodded, a small smile breaking through. Your Grace gave me the push and LNA or Mom. I read about her in the Foundation bio. Sounds like she raised a force. If it's all right, I'd like to donate the first program's proceeds to Stand-Up. In her honor, the gesture touched her deeply, a full-circle redemption that proved even hardened hearts could bend. They talked for an hour, Harold sharing his startup flops, Aisha his mom's coding Talus parting as unlikely allies, his card tucked into her clutch for future collabs. Who knew? She'd told Marcus later, over late-night ice cream. The villain becomes the sidekick. Now, at dinner, Sarah ladled gumbo into bowls, the table alive with laughter as Aisha recounted the encounter. He even asked for robot building tips for his grandkids. Said, teach me to code my way out of trouble, Marcus roared, clinking spoons. That's the Johnson magic turning foes to friends, seats to stories. As plates cleared, Aisha retreated to her desk, the weight of the day settling into inspiration. She opened a blank document, fingers hovering over the keys. The book idea had evolved in her mind, not just a retelling, but a series quiet stands, each volume a child's real-life triumph. Illustrated with her sketches and interactive QR codes linking to stand-up challenges. The first chapter. Mia texted midway, book collab, count me in for edits. And guess what, Tevlin's sending 60s artifacts for authenticity. Harold chimed in too, proud to be the before in your redemption arc. Keep shining. Even Captain Stevens, reached via email, offered a forward. From cockpit to garage, your stand kept us all on course. By midnight, the outline spanned 10 chapters. Each a ripple from that grounded flight. Mia's journalism journey, Evelyn's historical bridges, Harold's turnaround, and Aisha's own arc from scared passenger to empowered author. She saved the file as Quiet Stands, Volume 1, The Seat That Soared, a title that captured the paradox, grounded yet uplifting, silent yet resounding. As sleep claimed her, dreams wove through the narrative airplanes, lifting off with diverse passengers, seats transforming into launch pads for justice. In the quiet of pre-dawn, Marcus slipped in to kiss her forehead, whispering, the arc bends because of you, kiddo. Sweet dreams. Months later, at the book's launch in a sunlit bookstore, Aisha stood before a crowd of kids, parents, and familiar faces, Mia beaming beside her, Evelyn signing copies. Harold in the back row clapping loudest. Stories like this, she said, holding the colorful volume, remind us courage doesn't roar. It stands quietly, holding ground until the world catches up. The audience erupted, young hands waving stand-tall bracelets. The flight's echo faded into legend, but its lessons endured in apps alerting to unfairness, workshops bending biases, books igniting young minds. Aisha Johnson, once a girl fighting for a window view, had become a beacon, proving that true respect isn't stolen, it's earned through unyielding light. And in the vast sky of possibilities, her arc bent ever onward, inviting all to soar beside her.